Hello everyone, thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Roberto Rubio. I am the Technology Director at Rumo, one of the largest railroad companies in Brazil. And I am going to talk to you about innovation and future in an industry that is so traditional and so secular, which is the rail industry. Too bad we can't see each other in person, but I'm going to touch on a few topics and I hope you enjoy it. The first thing that I want to talk to you about, I want to see if you recognize this cartoon, this image here. People that have gray hair or people like me that don't have a lot of hair might recognize it. It's a very famous cartoon that was created in 1962 that was called The Jetsons. It's no longer on the air, but it really provoked society, and it was a cartoon. If you analyze this cartoon, you'll notice that there are some facts that they put on the table that actually became a reality. So innovation is really present in our day-to-day. Look at their watches. Look at the pill that they took to take exams. Artificial tanning. That's a traditional one. The cleaning robot. I mean, that was a cartoon. That was 1962, folks. When you analyze those things, you realize that innovation is reality. Innovation is something that penetrates all of our lives. And more, it penetrates the company's operations. Companies took a while to understand this, to get their heads around the scenario, but now they are woken up to it. And they are deep into the innovation context. So when you talk about innovation, what are the variables that affect it? Well, first of all, the speed in which it takes place. Human beings have always innovated, but never before in the speed that we are doing right now. One number that proves that to you, give you an example. I don't know if you knew about it, but the number of years that people took to be able to use new products on aviation is 64 to reach 50 million users. Credit card, 28 years. Facebook, it took people 4 years. And the amazing Pokemon Go only took 19 days to reach 50 million users. So the speed in which things are taking place is absurd. And like I said, it affects people's lives and companies. And the second point is the width or the amplitude of this change. We used to have innovation hubs historically. We had regions, people, companies. Now we have a global approach. This is a real information. We have almost 8 billion people in our planet. It's unbelievable how comprehensive this is, but we are talking about almost 5 billion people having access to the internet. Do you understand the magnitude of this? I mean, we are talking about almost 60% of all human beings on the planet using the internet for something. Add to the speed in which we can reach the whole planet. So that's what we are experiencing here. This is known in the innovation model as VUCA. A word that is volatile, uncertain, and ambiguous. I mean, you can hardly see where it goes. Changes are ever more complex. We have a scenario where we can determine future based on the past, but this is determined and it changes right away. I just told you about Pokemon Go. 50 million users in 19 days. I'm sure it's way less than now. And it's ambiguous. You never have just one answer for your question. In your personal world, I mean, in your individual life, human beings can absorb this more easily. When you analyze companies, they still have latencies. And this is something that is very typical to traditional industries. And I am the representative of one such industry. Rumo is a railroad company. It's the example of the first industrial revolution. And if you think about the impact on companies, roughly 40% of companies that are on the Fortune 500 these days will no longer exist in 2025. I'm not saying that they will be at a lower ranking, they will cease to exist. So companies have to adapt at this speed. All of that has to do with digitalization. This is what we are talking about, the digital world. And digitalization, I mean, you'll be mistaken if you think it's just 0-1, just create an app and you are now digital. The digital world is when you change the way you think, you change your mindset. Overall, you're able to face all the situation as something that can be improved. This is really easy to understand, folks, when you analyze your day-to-day, right? You go to school and you always try to improve your basis of knowledge with new know-how, with new expertise. That used to be an absolute truth up to 5 to 10 years ago. In today's world, yes, you still have to enhance your knowledge, but at the same time, what you cannot forget is that the knowledge that you possess might not be the same. It might not be as useful as it was 5 or 10 years ago. Those that took typewriting courses know exactly what I'm talking about. Your basis is eroded. I mean, if you learn a new programming language, this language might no longer be useful in 10 years or in 5 years. So you are not only talking about digitalization, you're talking about a concept which is to continuously learn, always reinvent yourself. How can you put your knowledge in check, add new knowledge, and above all else, how can you apply it and put it into practice in your business? How can a railroad company do that? For those that don't know about us, Rumo today accounts for roughly 14,000 kilometers of railroads. We have around 30,000, so we are by far the largest operator here in Brazil. We have over 1,000 locomotives, over 28,000 wagons, and we account for roughly 80% of all agribusiness exportation that is on rail tracks in Brazil. So we have a lot of impact in society, but at the same time, Rumo uses a technology, or the company has always based its knowledge on a railroad concept that is the same for decades. And this has always been true. This has always remained the same in the railroad industry. But in the last few years, the industry is questioning itself. And Rumo has created a broad range of innovations and a new way of thinking. Just a bit of a curiosity here, Rumo is the largest semi-autonomous train operator in Latin America, and that was created from 2015 to the present day. This is the practical effect of what I'm talking about here. We are eternal apprentices. We have to look for knowledge constantly. The status quo ceases to be our comfort zone and becomes our discomfort zone. You are always stuck to what you've always done, and that takes away value. That doesn't add value. And this is something that the digital world has brought us. This ability, this comprehensiveness, this ability to question, to be quick. This is now present in companies, and they are applying this in a very aggressive way. I want to share a piece of information with you that is really interesting from the Singularity University, which is an American institution that discloses disruptive knowledge, things that causes rupture in chains. These are the natural innovation cycles, and we apply this in a very intensive way at Rumo. An analog process is done naturally through decades. All of a sudden, someone digitizes it. When something digitalizes it, you start provoking the way in which you react to that stimulus. For example, I'm listening to my LP music. All of a sudden, I'm listening to the same songs on CD. Early on, you don't have all the titles you want. The quality is not the best. I'm talking about 20 years ago now. And that takes you into a disappointment cycle. So the first D is digitalization. The second D is disappointment. That doesn't give you the result compared to the previous analog. But the digital develops really, really fast, and it reaches the point of disruption. So in other words, it balances out. So the result between analog and digital is now the same. When this happens, and the example is again music, when you have the same number of titles, artists, and albums, why not use digital music? It's easier. When this happens, you get a boom in the industry. And right after that, and I will reverse the last three items to make more sense to you, right after that, you have the demonetization process. In other words, more people start using that and the value starts dropping. When this happens, you have democratization. Everyone starts using that thing. And the last step, which is the most fascinating one, is dematerialization. So in other words, what you are using, it's no longer physical and is now part of a different solution. I'll give you two examples very quickly that are good for our industry, but I'll touch on an industry that you'll recognize. Take music, right? or the distribution of music, for example. CD, digital, disappointment due to the quality and low number of titles. We reach another level, and then it becomes cheaper to buy that device. Everyone buys that device, but that device disappears. Today the player is in your mobile. You don't need a CD player anymore. The same happened for many other industries, and that goes for our industry as well, for the railroad industry. That goes for us as well. So we apply this concept in the day-to-day. We've seen it happen with many, many products. When you talk about corporate positioning, you have to make a decision of where you fit in. You have the orange line here on the graph, and this orange line is your investment on a new technology, on something that you want to innovate, versus the return that you'll get. So the dotted line is precisely the break-even point. So you start investing really early on the orange line, you put a lot of money into it. There is a long period of maturation. When you hit your break-even point, you get your return. And high-power industries, they follow this line for investment, and especially disruptive industries like the mobile industry. And the ones that are more traditional, they follow the blue line, where you start investing only when the technology is tried and true, when the orange line goes beyond the dotted line. So you notice that blue invests much lower, much less, but these are the followers. These are the industries that follow the trends of the market. Rumo is in the green line. We started investing in some situations and technologies that don't exist globally, so we created this technology. The investment is larger, yes, but we have a return and an impact in the industry that is much larger as well. So when you talk about applying this to a railroad, I mean, how can we make it happen? Overall, we have two major bets. The first one is from an artificial intelligence perspective. Our company is very much focused on simple processes that happen dozens and dozens of times per minute, with hundreds of variables that affect them, and with a result that is quite significant for each one. So when a human being makes a decision, he or she makes a decision based on the variables that he can see. And that decision may very well impact others. So that creates a loop. Your process varies. Every time a human being makes a decision, it improves. When the decision is right, when the decision is wrong, it gets worse. That's the left side graph. So when you put AI involved, one of the first factors is that AI is more spot on. It understands variables that we don't, right? We are able to look at 5, 10, hundreds and thousands of variables at the same time. But one important point is that AI is stable. It makes exactly the same decision all the time. So if it's wrong, the algorithm is wrong. So you correct the algorithm, it adds value to the industry. So that is a very strong bet that we take. And the second one is the clear reversal between processes where human beings can control machines, and now machines can work being controlled by human beings. I'll give you a parallel. Take the automotive industry. To park your vehicle, your reference is your back sensor. Now you press a button, your vehicle parks for you, and if you think it's doing something wrong, you just press the brake and it stops. Though both these concepts are being applied very intensively in the railroad industry. When you analyze everything that we have and where we are trying to go, you notice that we have some trends in the industry that are really, really strong. We have a very long road ahead of us. We work with FIAP to draw a future map for 2040, and we did it in a very summarized way. I mean, these are technologies that are natural in other industries that are coming to our sector. We now have exoskeletons, augmented reality glasses, transportation models that are completely different, constructive techniques that are so different, energy or power generation by using 12,000 tons of train that are moving, and data flow in an intensive way, digital railroads end-to-end, or alternate fuels. These are items that we are working with the main players of Brazil and the world. This here is my last slide, and I would like to conclude by showing you that we have a lot of clarity in terms of where we are headed. A railroad operation has components that are simple and that are highly complex. We have communication end-to-end, we have optimization systems, we have AI that is applied in each of the processes. So railroads, we already know where we want to reach, and we have a long path to get there. What motivates us is that we establish this concept in every one of our sectors. So that's how Rumo thinks, and this is something that makes us really proud. And we are sure we are able to move forward with that mindset. Thank you so much. Rumo has its open doors. Whenever you want to exchange information, we're here for you. Thank you so much.